Walleye are one of those species that are active year-round and are readily caught in any season. Just a few days after the blanket of ice melts, some of the best fishing of the year takes place on Saginaw Bay. The moment the water starts to clean up, a crankbait trolling bite kicks in that often produces some of the biggest fish of the year. Laden with eggs and ready to put on the feed bag one more time before the spawn, trophy-class walleye are the reward for anglers who haven't put away their cold weather clothing just yet. Jake and Mark Romanack explore the finer points of crankbait trolling, discussing in detail the best crankbait types, trolling speeds, the need for using offshore tackle planer boards, and also natural scent products like ProCure Super Gel.
Wow, this is absolutely stellar.
What a gorgeous fish. We're gonna get a quick picture for Facebook, and then she's going back to do some spawning. So you got one on the middle board, Dad.
Looky there.
You know what? The sun is shining. It's flat calm. It's first week of April, and we're wearing ball caps. Absolutely a gorgeous day today. I got nothing to complain. And we're fishing.
And we're fishing, so
nothing to complain about.
It's a beautiful thing. Hallelujah.
And doing it on one of my favorite ways to catch walleyes in open water trolling, crankbaits.
Every way to catch walleyes is your favorite way to catch walleyes.
That's true.
The truth be told.
That is true. I just like to see white mouths coming at the back of the boat.
Oh man, that's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm hoping for. Well, so far so good.
Doesn't feel like a monster fish, but he's pulling pretty good.
Well, at this speed, none of them are going to feel super big, but we are absolutely just crawling. Just crawling.
I'm going to take the board off for
I
me,
will
Dad.
indeed do that for you. Offshore board is off. Throw that out of the way there and see about a landing net. Not bad fish, Jake. I can see him.
Staying down
nice and clear. Lift.
Nice fish.
Yeah.
Gorgeous Saginaw Bay walleye. You know, the time frame that we're fishing right now is the first week of April, and we're catching fish that haven't spawned yet. This is actually a female fish, a perfect spawning fish. This right here is the bulk of your spawning, right around that 3-pound range. So we're not going to keep anything on today's episode. We're going to come out here, we're going to catch a lot of fish, we're going to show you how to catch a bunch more walleyes, and we're going to put everyone back so they're swimming and spawning and do what they do best. There she goes. You know, if you're going to troll for walleyes in the Great Lakes, heck, just about anywhere walleyes live in open water, you really need to learn how to troll a crankbait, because a crankbait is going to catch you a ton of walleyes throughout the season, whether it's right now when the water is ice cold or even into the summertime. So a crankbait like this husky jerk I have right here does a great job of imitating that minnow forage that these fish are keying on. This husky jerk right here is a great bait to fish in the cold water because it's a bait that you can fish very slow. Now today we're going to be trolling extremely slow, from 1 to 1.2 miles an hour. When the water's cold, you need to slow your roll and you'll catch a lot of walleyes.
You know, we are on Saginaw Bay this morning, but exactly what we're doing, just slow trolling, using stick baits, crankbaits. We could be duplicating this in a lot of different fisheries. You could be catching these fish doing this exact same presentation in places like Lake Erie, Little Romanack, of course. Green Bay, this is a very popular presentation on Green Bay. The list just goes on and on. Wherever you find open water walleyes, when the water is cold, you have an opportunity to catch them on crankbaits with planer boards, exactly what we're doing today. Some pretty decent fish here, Jake.
What was this lead?
This was my middle lead, so this one would have been 50. Look at that sunshine off that dorsal fin. That's a beautiful sight right there. He hasn't even hardly wiggled. I think the water's too cold, Jake.
It's a nice fish, though. Oh, nice fish.
That'll put a smile on the old man's face. Look at that bait just popped out of his mouth. I knew he wasn't hooked very good because at this slow speed, you're not putting very much pressure on these fish. Let me just get that crankbait out of there first. Beautiful fish. You know, Saginaw Bay is getting very, very famous these days for numbers of fish. It's probably not a big fish fishery in terms of it's not like a lake area where your chances of getting a 10-pound fish can happen at any given time. Don't get me wrong, you can catch some big fish on Saginaw Bay, but that right there is pretty much what you're going to catch when you come to Saginaw Bay. Lots and lots of high quality fish. And that is a beautiful baby right there. And she's going to go back and swim so you can catch her tomorrow.
Special considerations are provided by Cisco Fishing Systems and Striker Brands. Go early, go late, go prepared. Additional considerations provided by Fishhawk Electronics. Trolling without a fishhawk is called boating.
You know, one of the most common questions I get asked when it comes to open water trolling is where do I start? And the answer is very simple. It's your electronics. Our Lowrance electronics are what helps us find fish. Now, Saginaw Bay is a big, wide open flat, and these fish are constantly moving. When we shoot an episode of Fishing 4-in-1, we tend to pre-fish the day before. And yesterday we were on some very good fish, but these fish moved, and that's very indicative of Saginaw Bay. These fish are constantly moving. So what we do is we use our Lowrance electronics, drive around and mark fish. If I'm not marking fish, I know that there's no fish there, and we move around until we find a school of fish. Now, the fish that we caught yesterday were about a half a mile to the north, and as we moved around with our electronics, we were able to find that school of fish again, get set back up on them, and then start catching fish. So if you're looking to come out to a place like Saginaw Bay, or for that matter, any of the Great Lakes, you want to use your electronics to find fish. If you mark fish, you're going to catch fish.
You know, Jake mentioned that we use Lowrance electronics to locate our fish, and we don't fish a spot typically unless we're marking fish, and that is absolute. You need to keep that in mind. But there's another tool that we use. Once we've located those fish, the sonar is going to tell us where they're located in the water column. Are they on the bottom? Are they suspended halfway down? Are they right up near the surface? Those are all important clues that we need to know. Because when you're crankbait fishing, you need to be able to put your crankbait very close to those fish in order to catch them. So you need to know how deep your crankbait is running below the surface in order to be effective. We use another tool for that. It actually is right on our phone. It's called the Precision Trolling Data app. It's available for Android devices and also iPhones. And what it does is it tells you how to manipulate your lead lengths and your trolling speed to get your crankbaits to dive exactly the depth you need to catch the fish you're marking on your sonar. It's a deadly system called Precision Trolling Data. It's kind of slow and steady, isn't it, Jake? I mean, it's not a rocket science bite here. It's not red hot, but it's we're getting bit. I mean, it's just picking away at them.
I'm in a boat. It's in April. I'm not complaining, but that is the way that this bite tends to be. You know, when the water's cold, it doesn't mean that the fishing can't be great, but it's just kind of that slow and steady pick. And you get a day like this where it's flat, calm, sun shining. There's no other place I'd rather be than right here at the boat catching walleyes. It's a nice fish, Dad. This one was 55 back.
So it's a little bit deeper. Oh yeah. You're gonna take him on this side over here? It looks like this is the way he wants to come, is over by the kicking motor.
Well, if that's the way he wants to come, that's the way we're gonna let him come.
He's got that old husky jerk T-bone. Nice
He
job,
ate
Jake.
it.
Nice
Yeah,
job.
good fish.
You get a lot of love that when you see that crankbait literally T-boned in their mouth. Nice job, young man. Nice job. I love it when a plan comes together.
Get him out of the net right there. Gorgeous fish. Cool thing about fishing in the springtime, same thing like fishing in the fall. When you fish walleyes in cold water, you're gonna catch big walleyes. And even though this isn't a ginormously huge walleye, if you just look at, you know, I'm 6'5", 280 pounds, big paws. That's a thick, healthy fish. So it's not these summertime walleyes you think about when you come out here in June and they're all these skinny fish. When you catch them in cold water, they got some shoulders on them.
You know, Saginaw Bay has been a noteworthy walleye fishery since the mid-'80s. In the early years, it was a stock fishery. The Michigan Department of Natural Resources stocked millions of walleyes here to establish this fishery. But in recent years, they haven't needed to stock here. Natural reproduction and wild production has been very, very good. So the walleyes you catch in Saginaw Bay these days are not stock fish, they're wild fish. We have had an absolutely wonderful day on Saginaw Bay. I mean, it has been very, very good fishing today. And you look around and see all the boats, it puts a smile on my face to see all these fishermen out here, because wasn't that many years ago people didn't think about Saginaw Bay as being a destination, but it is a destination now. It's getting right up there in that world class, right up there like Lake Erie. Jake, this is a pretty heavy fish.
I'll grab the board for you.
This is a longer lead too. As the day has worn on here, I've started going a little bit deeper on my leads because we haven't seen as many of those high fish. So this is one of the longer leads I've fished today. Keep them coming, slow and steady. It's the way you win the race on these cold water fish. What are we looking at here? We're looking at about 12.
Staying down nice.
Staying down real nice.
Oh yeah, Dad, nice fish. A little closer. Got him.
There we go.
Great fish.
If you give those fish so much as an inch of slack, they are gone. You have to have razor sharp hooks, and you got to keep steady pressure on them fish. Don't pump your rod, just keep them slow and steady, and you'll put walleyes like that in a boat. It's a beauty. Oh man, I love it.
Special considerations provided by Precision Trolling, the Troller's Bible. Special considerations provided by the Ultimate Sport Show Tour, Michigan's elite sport shows. Eagle Claw presents the 411 on fishing.
You know, we've had over a season now to fish these HDS live units from Lowrance, and I tell you one thing, they've really excited me. First of all, this 12-inch unit right here, this live unit, has a quad-core processor. So what that means is it's an extremely fast unit. When we're doing things like structure scan or have multiple screens running, we really can go from screen to screen very quickly. But one of my favorite things about this unit is actually the quick menu options that are on the side of this unit. You know, if I want to save a waypoint, on the old units, it really wasn't that difficult to save a waypoint, but it's much quicker with Lowrance live units. So I have these quick options here that are set up, and basically I have two options. One, if I do a quick press, I can save a waypoint, and you can see it pops up really quickly, waypoint saved. But maybe I'm looking at my sonar unit here, I'm looking at the chart unit, and I want to go back to my sonar unit. What I can do is I can just hold on to that first quick menu, and boom, it pops me right back to a sonar unit. So I can go back and forth very easily. Now if I want to go back to my charts, all I have to do is go down to the button below it, just like that, and I'm back to my charts again. Now the really nice thing about these quick menu options is you can customize them to any way you want. And I'll show you how to do that. Basically what you can do is you can hold on to one of these buttons, and you have two options. You have a short press option and you have a long press option. So maybe I want to go down to this number 3 option. I can click that option and I can go capture screenshot. Maybe I want to be able to quickly add a screenshot if I'm marking a lot of fish out there. So I go ahead and I can save that. Now all I have to do is touch the number 3, and you'll see it pops up on the bottom here, screenshot captured. So it's a lot easier to go through these menu options. Now the HDS live units are a very cool unit. That quad-core processor is unbeatable. You team that up with the easy quick menu options on the side, and you just can't go wrong. Get that outside board to fire again. It's that high line. Now whenever you're fishing planer boards, your outside line is always going to be your highest line. And the reason for that is when you release that planer board, you want the board to be able to swing to the back of the boat without getting into all your other lines. What that allows you to do is keep your speed the same, keep everything else fishing. So there's a good chance that maybe you can get another bite as you're fighting that one fish, and that's where trolling becomes so effective. Well, if you watch Fishing 411 at all, you've probably seen that we've switched over and I've been fishing Daiwa products the last couple of years. And the reels that we've decided to use for walleye fishing is called Alexa. Alexa 300 line counter reel is the reel that I have in my hand right now. I'm telling you one thing, this is the smoothest, nicest reel that I've ever personally had in my hand. And the cool thing about it is that the Alexa reel has been around forever. It's kind of a tried and tested and true reel. And then we've added the line counter feature to it. So what you have is a low profile reel. The nice thing about that is it doesn't take a ton amount of filament to put on the spool itself. So you're not wasting a lot of line. If you're gonna be a monofilament guy, you really have to replace your line a couple times a year. And the nice thing about a low profile reel is that you're not wasting that monofilament with a big reel. You can take all the line off, put a bunch more line on, and you're good to go. Dad, this fish is staying down nice. Come on, baby, show yourself.
Oh my goodness, Jake, that is a toad.
Oh, barely hooked
barely
too.
hooked too. Come on, baby.
Come on, stay
A
lit.
little closer, a little closer.
Got that trocar in the corner. Come on, baby.
Lift him.
Come on, baby.
Whoa, baby, that was.
Got him in the
Talk
scoop.
about a lip shot, rim shot on him.
Got my
baby.
heart pounding a little bit. Wow.
Your heart pounding, man. It got awful quiet in the boat there for
Look
a
at that,
second.
Dad. You got your inside boards
We got
buried.
one pegged on the double header here. I just did. I tell you what, that is a beautiful thing. We had a little slow period, but then the double header really will pick things up for you, won't it?
Sure will.
So, when that fish, when you're going to see on camera, the one that Jake just landed, just that last treble hook is barely caught in his lip. And we've lost a couple fish today, so we switched out our treble hooks to trocars to get a little bit better bite on these fish. When you're going this slow, you don't get much of a hook set on these fish. In fact, you get next to no hook set on them. Thank you, son.
Then I gotta get down on the floor of the boat, take care of this one quick.
I don't think mine's anywhere near the toad fish that you have, but we're going to take him here nonetheless.
Quality fish.
Definitely a quality fish. Thanks, Jakers. Well, I don't know if I want to hold him up next to yours or not. That's going to be embarrassing, I think.
Let me hold this big mama up right here. This fish has got to be in that 8-9 pound range. Absolutely gorgeous fish. You know what I did to catch this fish is I caught this fish on a husky jerk, but this particular husky jerk, I'd missed 3 fish right prior to that board going back and hooking this fish, and they just wouldn't stay licked. And so we've talked about it before, but by changing your treble hooks, crankbaits in general come with some pretty high quality hooks nowadays, but that hook just wasn't getting it done. I kept losing fish. So I swapped it out to a trocar hook, swapped that back hook out, and you can see, you know, we talked about right before we netted that fish, he was just barely hooked. We got that trocar right there in the corner, and that hook, when it sticks to stay stuck. So what a gorgeous fish.
One of Saginaw Bay's finest. Put her back. I want to talk a little bit about some of the details that are tight to fall in place here. On my side of the boat, I'm primarily fishing factory colors on my crankbaits. Jake is using some custom colors, and right now, he's got me down pretty good. He's got me down about 3-to-1. So I'm getting at that point where it's looking like some specific colors are working better than some of maybe the factory colors I've had faith in over the years. So I'm going to dig into Jake's box and see if I can't find a couple of those fancy colored baits and put them on my side.
Special considerations are provided by Trailmaster Trailers and Daiwa Corporation. Special considerations are provided by ProCure, ruthlessly effective bait scents.
You know, on Fishing 401, you see us fishing the offshore board an awful lot, and it's very common for us to fish 2, 3, and sometimes as many as 4 boards aside. And in order to do that, you have to rig them a special way so that we can trip a board, maybe just to clear a lure that's not being productive, or possibly to fight a fish without having to clear all the other lines that might be in the way. It's something we call the loop trick, and it's a really simple way to fish an offshore board. And the good news is when you buy an offshore board, they come factory rigged with the right releases on them. You don't have to buy any extra gear. All I'm going to do here is reach up and grab my line. I already have my crankbait out in the water, so I'm just going to grab the line in my hand and I'm going to spin it a few times, and what I've done is just created a small loop. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take that twisted part of the line and I'm going to put it in the front release. That front release is called an OR19. It's the orange one, and you can see there's just a little loop of line here extending out the front of the release. Then there's a second release in the back of the board, and that's called an OR16, and I'm going to put the line in there. And it's important to note that in the red release there's a pin in here, so you have to put the line behind the pin. Now we have tattle flags on here, and so in order to make the tattle flag work, I have to give a little bit of slack line so the tattle flag can work. The beauty of this setup is that when I drop it in there and put it out to the side, when I get a bite, when I give the line a little pull, it's going to pop free from the front release, and the board is just going to be attached onto the line by the second release, the back release. So essentially the board is still pinned in position, but it's not planing anymore. The beauty of that is that now it drops out of the pattern so that it doesn't get tangled with any other lines that might be out there. So you can have 3, 4, even 5 lines aside and be able to fight fish and never have to clear any lines from your trolling pattern. It's a beautiful trolling technique, and it's called the loop trick.
I got one on the inside board, Dad, just buried.
Excellent.
Absolutely buried it. Look at that.
Oh, you gotta love when that tail flag goes whack and down it goes. That's a beautiful thing, man.
Yeah, he's pulling pretty good too. I was actually just looking at the graph and I go, whoa, that's a really nice fish. Mark that fish and boom, board went back. Of course, it's not the same fish that we marked, but it's good to know that you're marking fish and catching fish.
If you want it to be the same fish, you can make it be the same fish. Who's going to prove you wrong, Jake? So.
When I was a kid, I was always told, keep that rod tip up, keep that rod tip up. But I believe, like this fish right here, you can see it's a nice fish. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this rod tip, I'm going to keep it down in the water and keep this fish under the water. Makes it so it's a hard time for him to turn his head and throw those hooks.
We'll sneak in here and hopefully...
And this is a quality fish here, and so we want to keep him down as long as we possibly can. There we go. He's coming.
Keep coming.
Look pretty good. You ready, Dad?
I'm ready.
There we go.
That's the way to do it. God, that's a nice fish, Jake.
Yeah.
Very good looking
quality
walleye.
fish today. You know, when you think about Saginaw Bay, for the most part you think about eaters, but if you look at that spring and fall time frame when the water's cold, you have opportunities to catch absolutely gorgeous walleyes. Now a fish like this fish doesn't really live in the bay. She's just here to spawn. But this fish will go out into Lake Huron and they'll go out into that clear waters of Lake Huron, and this is where that fish will live all summer long. We have just had a ton of fun catching these beautiful Saginaw Bay walleyes today. Hey, my name's Jake Romanack. I appreciate you coming along and learning how to catch some of these Saginaw Bay fish using crankbaits, one of my favorite ways to catch suspended walleyes. We'll see you here same time, same place next week.
Closed captioning is provided by Lakeside Motorsports, Michigan's premier marine and power sports company. Fishing 411 is brought to you by Offshore Tackle, Ontario, Canada, Starcraft Marine, Yakima Bait Company, Smooth Moves, Niagara Falls, USA, Lowrance Electronics, Evinrude Outboards, and by Jay's Sporting Goods.
Appreciate you coming along today and catching some beautiful Lake Erie walleyes like this. Like, we're on Saginaw Bay.
That's gonna make the outreel right there.
They're just so big.